That sound means it's time for one of our special segments. It's called our Conservative Future segment, where we highlight a young conservative here in Arkansas. And I just want to welcome to the program, introduce you to Mr. Trey Rosenbaum joins us. Trey, welcome to the Paul Harrell program.
Hey, Paul. Good to be with you, man.
Yes, sir. So first off, tell everybody how old you are.
I am 28, just turned 28.
All right, 28 years old. Okay, so tell us, you're first of all, tell us what you do, too, as well, please.
Okay, I am actually, as of a few weeks ago, unemployed, but hoping to be starting a new job soon. So in the works interview process, getting that all worked out.
That's fantastic.
I have been in the past worked in politics and worked in the auto parts world.
Okay, in the auto parts world. All right, so you identify, though, and I say this really hilariously because of the way it's being used, but you self-identify as a conservative. Is that right, Trey?
Most definitely. Definitely.
So how did that happen? How you're 28 years old, and a lot of times you don't find young conservatives. The younger you are, you tend to be more liberal. So tell us about how you arrived where you are today.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I had bad influences in my house in the form of my parents. They were both their first president to vote for was the great Ronald Reagan, and they kind of raised me in a household where those ideals and those political beliefs were taught. And I was blessed to be kind of a combination of go to a private Christian school and homeschool. And then on top of that, I also got to go to a public community college while I was in high school. And so that always kind of shaped my views. And again, it started at home. And my dad decided to run for state representative when I was 12. And I'd been interested in politics up until then. I thought they were kind of cool, mainly because my dad thought they were cool. But when he got in, I really just went full bore in. And there's something really important to know. This was 2002. So in Arkansas in 2002, which I'm sure many of your listeners remember, being a conservative or a Republican in Arkansas was not a popular thing. There were only a handful of conservative legislators. And my dad, even though his district was about 50-50 Republican, it really leaned more Democrat. And He was young. He was in his early 30s, father of four, and he just decided to kind of take a leap. And, hey, I've been a small business owner. I've worked in the public and the private sector, and it's time to take my experience to the house in Little Rock. And that really kind of inspired me. And got involved in his campaign, and kind of one thing led to another. Got involved in more campaigns after that in high school, and then when I got to college, I got involved in college Republicans, and that just kind of fueled the fire even more.
I heard that a lot.
Ended up. Oh yeah, college Republicans is great, and it kind of gave me a group of people outside of my Bible study group. It kind of gave me a group of people that, while I wanted to see different cultures and different ideas, it gave me a group of, for lack of a better term, safe people to really talk about stuff with, bounce ideas off of, and kind of grow with as a conservative. And it kind of all that culminated when I got a job working for now Senator Tom Cotton, who you're hard-pressed to find somebody in the Senate that is more conservative.
Yes.
And
hey, have you been following?
Awesome.
You've been following the RAISE Act and him up there with Donald Trump and talking about how we got to curb our immigration system, make it more merit based. Isn't that fantastic?
I really agree with it. I think it's a great move on his part. Actually, just before the show, was reading up on it. I've been on the road most of today, but I think I'm not surprised to see something like that come from Tom, because when we sent Tom to D.C., we truly sent one of the smartest, brightest Arkansans there. And he really researches subjects. He surrounds himself with people that are smarter than he is, and he bounces ideas off folks. And getting to work for him, getting to see that kind of stuff was just awesome. And his immigration, it's funny because immigration wasn't a big deal when I worked for Tom, but it has become as the years have kind of drug on. And I love the RAISE Act, because I look at it and I go, this is a great balance between making sure that we help the people that want to come here and better themselves, because that's very, very important, but vice versa, that we respect our laws and that we, in some ways, also protect American jobs. And
Absolutely.
I think it's a great compromise.
We're talking with Mr. Trey Rosenbaum. He is a young conservative, 28 years old. Hey, what part of Arkansas? You say you're on the road, so what part of Arkansas are you in? Are you in the state today?
I actually am in the liberal bastion of Charlotte, North Carolina.
Oh, no.
So coming out here to visit some friends and all that kind of stuff. But I am from West Little Rock.
Okay, West Little Rock. Okay. All right, so Trey, tell us, this is kind of a general question, but when I say, conservatism, or you are a conservative, or I kind of have to qualify that these days with the other phrase, limited government conservatism. What does that mean to you in a nutshell?
Conservatism is, for me, a set of ideals I think best put forth by, again, to sound like a typical.
The maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing, and it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. We lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Hey, folks, welcome to the program. Thank you so much for being with us. My name is Paul. You have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We are building a liberty machine. The phone number, if you want to call us or text us, is 870-275-9799 for our Facebook Live and paulharrell.com audience, as well as YouTube. You guys can feel free to sound off in the comments, whatever you would like to say. Folks, we have some new developments, and listen, I know since Monday we have been talking quite a bit about Senator Jake Files. He is a senator in District 8, that is in the Fort Smith area, who has been named in an FBI affidavit, a sworn affidavit. And I'm going to get more into that here in a moment as to exactly what that means. This story represents a whole lot more than just one senator who's caught up in yet another General Improvement Fund scam where he takes General Improvement Fund money and then pockets it for his business and for his personal use. It's bigger than that. This story represents and exposes people behind the scenes doing everything they can in Arkansas to control electoral outcomes and to make sure that their power is affirmed. That's what this story really is. That's what this story really is. I have a lot of tweets that I have been putting out the last hour or so, hour and a half. You can follow that. Follow me on Twitter at PaulHarrell1776. I'm going to get to those here in a moment. Let's go to the first story. New development on this. The Republican Party of Arkansas has finally responded. The Republican Party of Arkansas has finally responded. A 5 News Online report mentions the Democratic Party of Arkansas first. They have called for his resignation. They did so on Monday, I believe. Well, hang on. Was it Monday or Tuesday? I can't remember when the story broke. It's all running together. But the Republican Party of Arkansas, it says, responded to the statement saying Senator Files is innocent until proven guilty. Listen to this. Senator Files is like any other citizen in the United States. He is presumed innocent until proven guilty, Chairman Doyle Webb said. At this time, no charges have been filed against him, although there is a reported ongoing investigation by the FBI, which has declined comment. It's not a reported. It is. This is an FBI agent and his sworn affidavit under penalty of perjury. That's what this is. An FBI agent's word under penalty of perjury versus Senator Jake Files in the Arkansas Republican Party now. And the fact that the Arkansas Republican Party is now defending Jake Files. That's what this is a complete and total embarrassment. The statement goes on. The investigation by the FBI, which has declined comment. If Senator Jake Files is charged and found guilty of a crime, he should be punished in the manner authorized by the law. So I guess this is in response to the Democrat Party of Arkansas calling for his resignation. Apparently, the Arkansas Republican Party thinks Jake Files should resign when? We don't know. They don't address it. Let's assume it's when the jail door closes behind Jake Files. At that point, Jake Files should resign. It's at that point he should actually say, okay, I no longer need to be representing the good people of District 8 in the Fort Smith area. I mean, come on, ladies and gentlemen. They would have been better off just saying nothing at all. Their silence would have been better than this. Oh, what a shame. What an absolute shame this is. At this time, no charges have been filed. Let me give you a little hint. We mentioned former Senator Paul Bookout. Former Senator Paul Bookout resigned over allegations made that he had misused his campaign funds, and he resigned. That wasn't the FBI that was investigating him. It was just the Arkansas Ethics Commission. The Arkansas Ethics Commission, and the hint of a special prosecutor being appointed, Paul Bookout resigned. This was done by the Arkansas Democrat Party and Governor Mike Beebe at the time. Paul Bookout was number one in seniority. He had to go because it was obvious what had happened. The fact that the Arkansas Republican Party is acting like what happened isn't obvious at this point is ridiculous. And let me tell you something I've read on Facebook. There's some people who don't want to call on Senator Jake Files to resign because they're saying, well, you know, it's a delicate situation and blah 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 blah. And I just have to say I'm kind of worried. Here's the thing. Before you make up your mind as to whether or not Jake Files should resign, I want you to sit down and I want you to read that affidavit from start to finish. A sworn FBI agent's affidavit. I want you to read it. And I think you'll come to the conclusion that I've come to, that this man has no business in the Arkansas Senate. He has no business in Arkansas politics. He has no business continuing to draw his $40,000 a year salary. He has no business doing it. He must go. He must resign. And I stick by my comment that he will resign. But he wants to resign when Governor Asa Hutchinson tells him he's allowed to. He wants to resign when apparently Chairman Doyle Webb and the Arkansas GOP tell him it's time to resign so they don't have to call a special election and mess up all of their plans and their chess. That's what this is. They're trying to play chess. And it's obvious if anybody would just, what they are doing is wrong. What they are doing, this is something the Democrat Party would do. Every time I've compared current Republican leaders to Democrats and saying nothing has really changed, I mean, here we have an example of this, except not when it comes to Paul Bookout's resignation. That doesn't hold up, does it? That argument doesn't hold up because they've got more principles than the Republicans do when it comes to an apples-to-apples comparison. This is okay. All right, let's just think about this for a second. You go read that affidavit, GOP. You tell me he doesn't need to resign. We have FBI agent sworn affidavit under penalty of perjury. In that affidavit, we have check numbers. We have bank account numbers. We know that the money transferred to the city of Fort Smith. We know that then it went from Fort Smith to a brand new bank account from Jake Files' employee. We then know that employee, based on the wiring records, that's why he is going to be charged with wire fraud. We know that then the employee took the $14,000 in a cashier's check addressed to his business and took the rest of the $26,000 out in cash. And then gave it to Files, because then Files, we have the bank accounts where Jake Files' FFH construction check went into FFH construction. And the rest was cash, according to Deanna Gonzalez. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's not pretend here that these are just allegations. Let's not pretend here. And so for any of you state reps or state senators, who many of you I love, many of you out there have really great conservative voting records, you should be calling on his resignation. Go read the affidavit. Paul Bookout resigned over much less. Paul Bookout resigned over an ethics commission recommendation and the threat of a special prosecutor. And who is protecting who? What is being protected right now? What are they afraid of? Who else is being investigated? Well, there's a lot of people, I believe, that are being investigated tied to this whole thing, because it's just a rabbit trail. They get Mike and Neal to confess and cop a plea, then they're indicting John Woods, and then from there it's like, wait a second, you guys were doing what? Is this going on anywhere else? And it just becomes very easy because these guys arrogant. I was talking to a gentleman last night. I was talking to a friend of mine last night, and he was saying, I was listening to what you were saying about Jake Files. Is he just arrogant? I don't know. I can understand how a lot of people would come to that conclusion when you read what the FBI says was the means for him to steal money. Now, this is all right. Aside from this man, this is about thievery. Arkansas Republicans, this is about thievery. Now, look, I know you guys don't like when I call you a liar, when I can pretty much prove that's what you are. I know you don't like it, though. Somehow, being a liar is subjective to you guys. Well, you don't understand. Once you get into office, you figure things out that you didn't know when you were running, and you get a lot more intellectual. You become more academic. By the way, who would ever? Isn't it weird? Some of these people have massive egos. Go look at some of these Arkansas legislators and how they describe themselves on Twitter as academics. Some people actually put that they're an academic. that lets you know how highly some of these people think of themselves. It's unbelievable. But look, I know. Okay, yeah, you can't call them a liar. Okay, all right. Well, when can we call them a thief? When can we call them a thief? You see, because the reason they don't like to be called liars is because these people think of themselves as highly moral individuals. So to be called a liar, and they know if immorality is proven, then they have lost all credibility with the voters, because the truth is you guys are so much better than most of the people down there. There are more people that just want to take advantage of their position than there are that don't. And it's like a 5-1 margin. I mean, it's insane. At what point can we call you a thief, though? We can't call you a liar. Oh, yeah, because that then they're morally, they know that people are like, well, that is actually morally wrong. To willingly deceive, to willingly lie, that is morally wrong, and I don't want you to serve me anymore. Okay, so they're like, when Paul Harrell says that this person's a liar for saying that his bill would do this or saying his bill would do that and then it didn't, or purposely misleading an entire room of conservatives so you could get their support, knowing that the plan was to expand and continue to grow government all along, or whatever the case may be. Okay, that's subjective. But at what point can we call Jake Files a thief? Do we have to wait for him to be behind bars before we can call him a thief? We can't examine the evidence. We can't look at the general improvement money. We can't listen to the contractors that say that their businesses were used to forge bids so that he could secure the money. This is crazy. This has nothing to do. This has nothing to do. We're not even talking about the $80,000 he got from Norsworthy transferred to his business. That was in part of in a discovery lawsuit. We're not even talking about that. We're not even talking about the nursing home industry and the concept because actually it's a little bit more shaky that we're talking about straight up bribes here. All we're talking about in this specific context is a man taking $26,000 of my money and of your money and of everybody else's money and putting it in his pocket. That's what we're talking about here. And for the Arkansas Republican Party to pretend and get on some high horse that, well, he's innocent until proven guilty. Everybody knows that. Don't state the obvious. Of course he'll have due process, but you're telling me this guy needs to be in the Arkansas Senate for the fiscal session. Is that what you're telling me? And the reality is they know he won't be. The reality is the Arkansas GOP knows Jake Files will not be in the Marble Palace when it comes to the fiscal session next year because they know he's going to resign, but they want to make sure their man gets in. And if you have a special election, State Representative Matt Pitch will not be able to run because he's already a state representative. That is what they are worried about here. This goes against all of their strategy. This goes against trying to lock down the Arkansas Senate to be a rubber stamp for Asa Hutchinson and do anything he wants all the time, to eliminate dissent. That is what this is about. And there has to be people in the Arkansas GOP. There has to be people in the Arkansas Republican Party that know this is wrong. And the only way... I feel sorry for some of you guys. I honestly feel sorry for you. Because guess what? Your entire power structure rests on the idea every night when you go to bed on your hopes that the people don't really find out what it is you're doing. That's got to be nerve-wracking. That has to be kind of upsetting if you think about it. But we're still going to give you the news that nobody else is going to give you, folks. And I really appreciate you listening. I appreciate everything that you guys do for us and continue to get the word out. I've got more developments about this story and how protectionist this is, how the GOP is making excuses. I got more coming up next. Don't go anywhere. Phone number 870-275-9799. Back in a moment. Arkansas small businesses are tired of taxes that are too high and regulations that work as obstacles to small business success. If you own a small business, it's time to take action. Now, I'm not talking about the local chambers of commerce. I'm talking about an organization that's actually run by small business owners and are fighting for small businesses right here in the state of Arkansas. They're called Conduit for Action, and they're on your side. Conduit for Action is here not to get something from the government, but to be left alone by the government. Think of them as your personal advocate for limited government at the Capitol in Little Rock. If you're tired of all the politicians talking with no results and ready for action, start outsourcing your government affair needs with Conduit for Action. Go now to conduitforaction.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforaction.org and stand up for small business in Arkansas.
Conservative legislation killed?
Or do you need policies enacted that ensure government growth?
Then you need to get
Nephewed. Hi, I'm nephew number 1 of uncle, nephew, and nephew, attorneys at law. I'm not a lawyer, but I am a senator.
And I'm nephew number 2, and I am a lawyer and also a senator.
Are you the victim of a recent accident in which the voters in your community mistakenly elected a limited government conservative who is now actually implementing the ideas he or she campaigned on?
That's right, nephew number 1. Don't be a victim of democratic elections any longer. At Uncle, Nephew, and Nephew, we are committed to killing limited government legislation and promoting bills that increase the size of government by using any tool at our disposal.
Because sometimes the truth of the matter is, principles get in the way of pragmatism.
Just listen to some of our great testimonials.
Ever since I've been using the nephews, all my special interests have been served. As long as you make sure your contract says lobbying services are prohibited, then the legal services of uncle, nephew, and nephew are legal. Trust me, put the nephews on them.
Came out of nowhere. I was blindsided last election cycle when my well-funded and paid-for politician lost to some grassroots limited government voters. But then I hired the nephews, and they killed all the conservative policies the voters wanted. I got nephewed.
I got nephewed too, and so can you.
Uncle, nephew, and nephew will accept compensation via campaign contributions.
Put the nephews on them.
PHP parody. Need to get something off your chest? Then call or text Paul now. 870-275-9799.
It's no secret. Our whiteboard this week has been Eclipse of the Truth. Call it a crude drawing. I'm not an artist, a visual artist anyway. A crude drawing here, but I mean that's exactly what the Arkansas GOP and Governor Asa Hutchinson are trying to do. I would urge you to call the Arkansas Republican Party and tell them to congenially be nice about it, but tell them to call for Jake Fowles' resignation, that this is a blemish, that there's just no reason why he should be he should remain in office. And you should specifically say, I think a special election is in order here for the people of District 8 and Fort Smith. The Arkansas GOP phone number, we gave the governor's office out yesterday. Arkansas GOP phone number, 501-372-7301. I'm going to say it again, 501-372-7301. 501-372-7301. We posted it over at the Facebook page. So check this out. Here's some of the tweets that I've been setting out because it's just getting ridiculous. They're hoping that the truth is eclipsed. They're hoping that they are never caught in what's going on here. So for a while now, let's see what I've been tweeting out. Just basically Jake Fowles should resign. Yeah, apparently the Arkansas Republican Party thinks Jake Fowles should resign, but only after he's in prison. But they didn't even say he resigned. They completely ignored the Arkansas Democrat Party. The Arkansas Democrat Party said he needs to resign because this is ridiculous. Now, it was weird because it took the Arkansas Democrat Party way, way, way too long to do this. And maybe the Arkansas Democrat Party doesn't care because they don't got it. There's no chance of the Democrats going to win in District 8. There's no chance of that going to happen. But they finally did come around. Paul Bookout resigned with only the threat of a special prosecutor, but sworn affidavit from FBI not good enough. Remember when the Arkansas Democrat Party gave up the number one seniority with Bookout resignation? Here, State Representative Matt Pitch should call for Jake Fowles to resign. When Bookout resigned, it was after the Ethics Commission investigated, not the FBI. And here's my plea, and this is honestly my plea, and this should be yours if you give him a phone call. Arkansas Republican Party, do the right thing and tell Asa Hutchinson he will have to sacrifice State Representative Matt Pitch's rise to the Arkansas Senate in lieu of principles. How about that? Oh, and here's this one. We haven't talked about this. We'll probably talk about this here in a little bit, but the folks, the Arkansas Republican Party are deleting comments on their Facebook page that are calling for Jake Fowles' resignation. Arkansas Republican Party is deleting Facebook comments. I know this to be true. No, I know it for a fact. They're deleting Facebook comments calling for Jake Fowles to resign because, man, they want yes men. They want to make sure they get they don't have conservatives. That's the only thing I can tell you. We can talk about the benefits of primaries. Words are cheap. Primaries are the new general election here in this state because everybody wants to be a Republican, even if you want to grow government. Even if you want Arkansas to be the next Soviet Union, you're going to run as a Republican to do it. So primaries are the next general, but talk is cheap. What are they actually doing? Folks, I know. I can tell you so much. I can tell you so much right now. They don't want limited government conservatives in office. They want people who will fall in line and protect the status quo, and that's why they are not calling for Jake Files to resign yet. Back in a moment.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
Conservative Ronald Reagan. It's limited government, it's small government, it's making government work for the people without robbing the very people that's trying to help. I think it's low taxes. I think it is freedom. I think probably the best word to sum it up is freedom. One of my friends, I got several friends who are legislators, and was talking to one of them the other day, and I said, man, when you go to the House and the Senate, when you're voting, I said, you really need to think about every bill you're voting. How does this advance freedom and limit government every single time? Because if you're not looking at that, then you can't call yourself a conservative.
Yeah.
And so I think that's just the really core principle of it is how are we limiting government and getting government out of the way of capitalism and free enterprise, really unleashing the best in people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a great definition of it for sure. And what that really kind of makes me realize, and said this before, but specifically with Arkansas politics and what's going on in Little Rock and the massive Republican majorities that we have, there's just such an opportunity to reform and to limit government, to show people what more liberty does instead of force. And so I'd love to get your thoughts on maybe the state of Arkansas politics, specifically in the Republican Party, which is the party where conservatism historically has existed. How does the Republican Party, protect its image from, growing, big government politicians, tax and spend politicians in the party? How do they, if they're advocating for higher taxes like we've seen, how does the Republican Party survive out of all of this?
Paul, great question, man. I've been very frustrated with the Republican majorities in Little Rock. They are squandering an incredible opportunity to make a great state even greater. And there have been so many side issues, so many social issues, so many issues that don't advance freedom. They don't help anybody. They're not beneficial. All it is political grandstanding. And it's been very frustrating to see Republicans forget where we came from. I look at somebody like my dad, who at one point was one of only 18 Republicans, yet was able to pass a concealed carry bill that broadened our concealed carry rights in Arkansas, actually passed even other states that were Republican controlled. He did that through sitting down with other people and going, hey, what can I do to make this work? And, the Republicans in Little Rock have forgotten how to do that. There's a difference between negotiating and compromise. Negotiating means everybody sits down at the table, they throw everything out, and they come up with something that's going to work at least somewhat okay for everybody. Compromise means one person gets everything and the other person gets nothing. And they lack the ability to do that. And I think that all culminated with the private option. The private option is a brilliant example of government overreach and of Republicans trying to solve a problem and in reality making it worse.
Yeah. And
so I really hope to see Republicans do something, because I look back at this last session, and it's just there was no good that came out of it. I'm still trying to figure out, okay, what's better, because my income taxes really haven't gone down. Sales taxes on a local level are still high.
Watch Paul live at paulharrell.com. It's free and available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because the Liberty Machine never sleeps.
We're going to be talking with Senator Scott Flippo here at the top of this next hour at 5:06, so you don't want to miss that. It's always a great conversation about big, limited government conservative ideas. But I want to stick with this Jake Files thing for just a little bit longer, if you'll indulge me, and then we're gonna kind of dovetail in to a different a different issue with the exact same problem, and that is unbelievable loyalty and fealty to the governor, no matter what. Many of these guys are. They only care to be on the side that they perceive as the more powerful and more it's going to benefit them. They only care to be not representatives of the people, but administrators. Essentially, right now what we have is a lapdog legislature that is effectively another executive agency that answers to the governor. That's what we have right now. Last week on the program, there were some people saying Asa would have been way better than the alternative to Mike Ross, the Democrat. And I don't believe that anymore. I understand hindsight is 20/20, but the truth of the matter is, with massive Republican majorities, if Asa Hutchinson had a Democrat next to his name, at least half of the big policy things that he wanted would not have happened, because the Republicans would have said, right now, this all operates on most of these Republicans having to ignore the Republican Party platform. They have to ignore a giant elephant in the room, no pun intended, that Asa Hutchinson is a progressive, that Asa Hutchinson only cares about protecting the status quo, only cares about representing, if it's corporate interests, Walmart, Tyson, or whatever. I mean, that's it. That's it. Asa doesn't care about fiscal responsibility. This man has spent $500 million. He's increased spending $500 million in 3 years. Over and over and over and over. I mean, and yet we're growing welfare like crazy. I mean, it's nuts. But anyway, back to the Arkansas Arkansas Republican Party. So the Arkansas Republican Party, if you want to give them a phone call, I highly suggest that you do it. 501-372-7301. That's 501-372-7301. The reason I highly suggest that you give the Arkansas Republican Party a call is to just politely say, hey, look, we would like for you to ask for Jake Files to resign, because this is a blemish on the Republican Party. Thousands of Arkansans have been voting for Republicans for a long time now. And we can talk about why, but most of the reason is, issue by issue, if you go down the list, people are identifying with the Republican Party. And it's not being implemented. But one of the ideas behind the Republican Party is that, look, when Democrats do terrible things, they have to do really, really, really terrible things in order to resign. Most of the time, you know what I mean? Like, they got to be caught red-handed. Jake Files has been caught red-handed, and most of the time, if a Republican barely does anything, they resign. For some reason, this is not happening now. This, again, a sworn FBI affidavit under penalty of perjury. This FBI agent has bank account numbers. He's got checks. He's got check numbers. He's got check amounts. They all match up. He has contractors who are saying Jake Files forged bids in their private company's name to secure $26,000 of your money. Now, Micah Neal has already pled guilty for taking $38,000 in kickbacks. John Woods is being indicted over a similar scheme. This would if John Woods were a senator, if John Woods were still a senator by this standard, Doyle Webb and them would basically be like, okay, fine. I mean, before John Woods was indicted, we all know why John Woods got out of the race. John Woods didn't run for re-election because everybody knew this was coming. You guys are protectionists. You guys are wrong. If you ever, people hate being told wrong. Everybody hates being told that they're wrong. I'm telling you right now, Doyle Webb and the Arkansas Republican Party are wrong. They should not be listening to Asa in this capacity. Asa Hutchinson, you are wrong. This is wrong. This guy should resign. He should have resigned 3 days ago. And yet, you're defending him. All because you don't want to call a special election. They want to call a special election would essentially take your guy out. Take the political loss, do the right thing, and ask the man to resign. It's very simple. Very simple. But they're scared. They really are. They're scared. They're scared of this broadcast. It's weird. These folks are scared of broadcasts like this one. At the same time, they do believe they're too high up on their horse to actually get knocked down. And that is their biggest weakness. It's called hubris. So the GOP is deleting Facebook comments. The Arkansas GOP are deleting Facebook comments calling on Jake Files to resign. They're scared of you. They're afraid of the people that are going to tell other people what's really going on. You see, the GOP, Arkansas GOP, they make a Facebook post about something benign. Look at our shrubs. Look at how beautiful our shrubs are. And then people say, hey, what about Jake Files being, the Republican Party stands for this. What about Jake Files needing to resign? Oh, those comments are gone. See, there may be people that like the Republican Party that don't exactly know that right now the Republican Party has been co-opted by Governor Asa Hutchinson and his Washington, D.C. mentalities. Governor Hutchinson has spent more time developing his political what would you say, skills in Washington, D.C. than he has in Arkansas. Why else do we have Cindy Gillespie as the head of our DHS director? A Cindy Gillespie who is from Massachusetts and helped craft Romney Care and with Mitt Romney in Massachusetts. And, of course, she also was from the international law firm called Dentons. Look it up. Hey, our Facebook listeners, you guys, our Facebook listeners who are listening right now, I want you to look up a law firm. It's called Dentons, Denton's. Dentons. It's an international law firm. That's where our DHS director is from. That's where she's from. She's here in Arkansas on assignment to solidify Barack Obama's signature domestic achievement when it comes to getting people addicted to government providing their health care. Now, where did Asa Hutchinson, good old Arkansas Asa Hutchinson, standing up for Arkansas, where do you think he got a name? Where did he get a name from, like Cindy Gillespie, from an international law firm? And when I say international, I mean these guys are everywhere. And what they are, they're not a law firm in terms of what you would think of a normal. They're a lobbying firm. They're a bunch of attorneys, but they lobby and they want to implement similar policies globally. What do you think that? What would we call that? What would we call that term? What would we say that is? So that's what we got going on here. We are fighting bigger fish than many people know. We're fighting much larger fish because people just think, oh, well, Arkansas, local, we've got more control. No, I mean, in some cases, sometimes I feel like we have less control because the mainstream media in Arkansas, they're not investigating any of this. They're not investigating any of this. You had you had Asa Hutchinson's chief of staff, Michael Lamoureux. It was discovered took $120,000 from a nonprofit. That nonprofit was funded entirely by lobbyists. And it was a consulting fee. They only raised like $100,000. I'm sorry. They raised $140,000 that year, and $120,000 of it went to the president of the Senate at the time, Lamoureux, who then went on to be governor's chief of staff, and it was a consulting fee because he's an attorney. Now, you would think that would spawn a lot of questions from the media, maybe to every senator, get them on record. Hey, are you a consultant? Do you do any consultant work? Because it's not just being an attorney now. I mean, you can just become a consultant and you can make all of this money. No, nothing. Mainstream media doesn't want anybody to know what's going on here for some reason. I don't know. Maybe they won't get the interviews they want if they start asking critical questions. Governor Asa Hutchinson's welcome to come on this program anytime and explain why a lot of things. I'd love for him to explain to me the pitfalls of socialism. You know, why putting all of your money, all of our money into one big pot and dividing it up equally is a bad thing. I'd love for him to tell me why that's a bad thing. Why is government dependency a bad thing? I'd love for him to explain why he bailed on the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. What was that call like that Walmart made to him that made him cave? Like, what really happened? I mean, how did it go? I mean, was there a hi, Asa, how you doing? Or was it immediately a specter-like voice on the other end saying, you will not sign that bill or I'll push this button and you'll fall into the tank of the piranhas? I mean, what exactly took place on that call with Asa? I would love to know. I would love to know why Asa doesn't want Jake Files. I mean, I'm telling you the real reason. He doesn't want Jake Files to resign yet because that means he'll have to call a special election and State Representative Matt Pitch, the academic, will not be able to waltz into that Senate seat. Yeah, it's a risk. You know, it doesn't mean that there's not going to be a yes man. If they call a special election in District 8, Fort Smith, that doesn't mean there's not going to be a yes man for the governor. It just means there may not be a yes man for the governor. That's all it means. It doesn't mean you're going to take a political loss. It just means now there's the possibility you're going to take a political loss. Surely you can get over it, Governor. Surely you can get it. Surely you can figure it out. Now, I'm sorry. My brain is literally going 1,000 miles an hour today because I'm pretty worked up about all of this. Joe.
I'll put my conspiracy hat back on real quick.
Okay, tinfoil hat. You know, they actually do think the elites in the Arkansas Republican Party, they believe that they think of people like me and you as tinfoil hat people, by the way. Go ahead.
What if one James Sturch is on alert all the way over to District 8 to be the yes man? That's why they're waiting to call for his resignation. So
you are certainly I mean, that is a conspiracy theory. I will make you a tinfoil hat in the break for that one.
I appreciate it.
Now, James Sturch is already lurching around. You know, he's already trying to, you know, run for the state Senate seat that is occupied right now by Linda Collins Smith, and that's already. But he is a yes man for the governor. There's no question about that. By the way, if you want to call the Arkansas Republican Party and tell them that Jake Files should resign and they should demand it, that number is 501-372-7301. That's 501-372-7301. I'm going to give it to you one more time. 501, common Arkansas area code. 372-7301. Okay, now, different issue, same problem. Remember how I said the legislature is essentially now just a de facto government agency, executive agency for the governor? Here's an example. Joe, let's get the story up there. Arkansas governor orders up contract for DHS. It is from the Arkansas Democratic Gazette. Look at this story. This is a Michael Wickline piece. No delay, he says, as legislators stall. No delay. So this is about Arkansas governor ordering up a DHS contract. I want you to listen to this because this is incredible to me. So Hutchinson is going to forge ahead with a proposed contract it's a technology contract about DHS, which should scare everybody. They spent hundreds of millions of dollars on software to manage Medicaid expansion that never worked. The companies just got to take the money, folks. The companies got to just run away with the money and they never delivered on a product. It was a huge scandal. Huge scandal. And ASA would not fire the then director, John Seelig, for it. Complimented him, probably because he knows where the bodies are buried. The governor said in a statement it was important not to delay the contract. Oh, so is the contract being delayed? Well, that's weird. The contract is being delayed. Well, why in the world would the contract be delayed? Oh, there's something called a legislature. In this case, when the full body is not in, the legislative council has to meet. And so Friday, the council adjourned midway through its agenda after senators and House members clashed over the contract. But guess what? The council is going to have another meeting on Wednesday to attempt to review it. Okay? So next Wednesday, they're going to have another meeting to try to review this. House members, Michael Wickline writes, House members voted 21-2. Scroll down, Joe. 21-2 to complete the council's review of the proposed contract before senators voted 9-6 not to review the proposal. Senators initially voted 10-6 not to review the proposal. Then the council expunged that vote at the urging of Senate President Pro Temp Jonathan Dismang, a Republican from Searcy, clearing the way for the second vote. The department's proposed 3-year, $75.3 million contract with Deloitte Consulting of Hermitage, Tennessee, has drawn criticism from some lawmakers in the past days because it's more costly than the 3-year, $54.4 million proposal submitted by current contract holder Northrop Grumman of Falls Church, Virginia. All right, stop. So, how is this the same problem? Well, just like in general sessions, when the governor doesn't get what he wants, he gets his lackeys, and that's what they are. You guys cannot think for yourself. You have your power because you do what people that you perceive as more powerful than you want you to do. You're a lackey. Now, Jonathan Dismang expunges the vote. Now, what is that? What is an expungement? Well, it happens all the time. Legislative council votes one way. The elite and the establishment don't get what they want. So, instead of moving on, next issue, they have a vote to expunge the vote so that they can essentially redo and convince people to come over to their side. I need more time. And, you know, people got to get promised things. I mean, it's the way that business is done down there. So people are able to be promised certain things. Or when the Democrats were in control, and I'm sure this doesn't happen now that the Republicans are in control, it was the time where they could threaten people to actually do what they wanted them to do. See, folks, you got to remember. You guys got to remember something. We are still in a Bill Clinton-esque state. That's right. See, you got to remember something. Bill Clinton... Since Bill Clinton, the Arkansas bureaucracy started the political career, and this system almost put 2 Clintons in the White House. Almost gave us a potential of 16 years of Clintons in Washington, D.C. Well, it really kind of did if you take of Hillary's Senate terms that she got. So no one has reformed anything. The way things have been done are the same. And you thought that Republicans would, and this is the thing, the people of Arkansas, when they voted for Republicans, they were voting for reform. They were tired. People of Arkansas are tired of being number 49 or 50. People in Arkansas are tired of saying, thank God for Mississippi. We were sick of it. We're tired of it. We were giving up on the Democrat Party, and you Republicans refused to actually do the reform. And many of them who have been elected, they don't realize that. They have no clue they were elected to reform the Marble Palace and the swamp in Little Rock. They don't know that. They've never even thought about it. And that is, I mean, I would like for them to realize it. I don't care what you voted on in the past. I would love for you to have a change of heart and be like, oh, I just read the Road to Serfdom, or I just read How Should We Then Live by Francis Schaeffer, or I just read The 5,000-Year Leap by Cleon Skousen. Like, I just read this book, and you know what? Government really is the problem. It's not the solution, and I would love that. I would love that. If you'd come out and you'd say stuff like that, I would say, great, you know, and now let's go and let's judge you based on what you do. Some of these guys haven't gotten the memo. I hope some of them can get it, but most of them won't because they're worshiping the R at the end of Governor Asa Hutchinson's name, and they're lapdogs, and they refuse to think for themselves. When you have to ask the governor to run a bill, you're not thinking for yourself, and you're betraying the people that sent you down there. And that happens so many times. Well, I can't run your bill. I got to ask the governor. We're going to take a break, folks. You're listening to the Paul Harrell program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group. Again, the phone number to the Arkansas Republican Party. Give them a call. Demand for Jake Files to resign. 501-372-7301. That's 501-372-7301. One more time, call and ask for Jake Files' resignation. 501-372-7301. Back in a moment.
Good morning. Good morning. Congratulations, you have made it to the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language, where we strive to offer politicians the very best in ambiguously specific language, the purpose of which is to allow our politician bosses to grow government and keep their constituents in the dark. This yields two beneficial outcomes. First, the government-growing politicians stay in office, and second, we at the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language get to remain in the shadows and get to keep our jobs. Now, it's time for technocrat training drills. Johnny?
Yes?
A politician wants to use the healthcare system to punish those who have and redistribute their wealth. What is the appropriate language to use in this situation to make an unpopular idea acceptable to the public?
I would emphasize that these ideas would make their healthcare more affordable and make sure the public understands if they already have adequate healthcare, nothing will change for them.
Very good, Johnny. Much progress since last time. Next up, let's have Susie. Susie, your politician has been caught in, dare I say it, a lie.
What kind of a lie?
It doesn't really matter, but in the spirit of the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language, I will give you a good hypothetical scenario. Dozens of politicians have been thrown out of office for supporting a socialist healthcare program. So the remaining politicians get together and they pass a bill to, quote, end the program, end quote. But they really want to keep it. What should they do, Susie?
May I ask a question for more information?
Certainly.
Has the word lie been used by the political opposition?
Yes.
I know. They should change the name of the program. Maybe use the word works to make the sheeple think it's for working folk. Then they should go on the attack and get the public distracted. I would advise the politician to publicly question why our political dialogue has become so uncivilized and tell them to claim using the word lie, no matter how accurate, is a personal attack on his or her character. And if they admit to any wrongdoing at all, they must replace the word lie with words like misspoke, misstatement, misrepresent, or mislead.
Amazing! Excellent work, Susie. I feel like the student has really become the teacher. You will make a terrific addition to the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language.
All hands on deck. This is a Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language emergency. Several politicians are scrambling after being exposed by some talk radio host. Let's move it, people. They need our help.
The Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language. You vote 'em in, and we keep 'em in. PHP Parody.
All right, we got we're going to be talking with Senator Scott Flippo coming up next. You don't want to miss that from Senate District 17. And then after that, we're going to go over, we got a new Conduit for Action survey, Joe. And so we're going to go over that. It's a Know Your Government survey, so it's really, really good. You can check that out right now at conduitforaction.org. People on Facebook and stuff, they're saying, like, what's with Asa? What's with the status of the GOP and everything else? And again, call the GOP and ask for Jake Files' resignation, 501-372-7301. It's ridiculous. The GOP issued a statement today defending Jake Files. That's right. The GOP today issued a statement defending Jake Files not having to resign in response to the Democrats. I never thought they would do something so stupid. I thought they would just remain silent, but instead they're saying, well, he's innocent until proven guilty. They are ignoring, which is a true statement. No one denies that. But they are completely ignoring the fact of his financial difficulties, of his $80,000 loan, and this is a sworn affidavit by the FBI. But anyway, people say, what's up with Asa? You got to remember something about Asa. Asa was the election of Donald Trump, in my opinion, reinvigorated Asa because he knew he was resigned to be governor for another 4 years. Let me explain briefly. Governor Asa Hutchinson wanted Marco Rubio to be president of the United States. Governor Asa Hutchinson likely was doing that so that he would be in the running for Attorney General. It was at that point that I realized, I don't think Asa really wants to be governor of the state of Arkansas. He's really not interested, and he's certainly. But now that he isn't the Attorney General and Marco Rubio lost and Donald Trump won, I think he has a greater focus on defeating the limited government elements in this state that want something better, and instead he really wants to protect the status quo. And he's in contact with people all the time who are encouraging him to do so. We have one more hour coming your way next, folks. Don't go anywhere.
Rush, Glenn, Sean, and Paul. This is Jonesboro's 1013 FM News Talk, KBTM.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
It means everybody sits down at the table, they throw everything out, and they come up with something that's going to work at least somewhat okay for everybody. Compromise means one person gets everything and the other person gets nothing. And they lack the ability to do that. And I think that all culminated with the private option. The private option is a brilliant example of government overreach and of Republicans trying to solve a problem and in reality making it worse.
Yeah.
And so I really hope to see Republicans do something, because I look back at this last session, and it's just there was no good that came out of it. I'm still trying to figure out, okay, what's better, because my income taxes really haven't gone down. Sales taxes on a local level are still high. Our unemployment's great. I do appreciate that, but at the same time, it still could be better. Our job environment could be better. What are you doing to keep young conservatives, or just young people in period, in the state? What are you doing to make our laws where they get out of the way of businesses trying to grow here in the state? So I think they're squandering, again, an opportunity to really go forward. And I don't want to badmouth anybody. I think there's some really great legislators in the House that are trying, and they're working hard.
Yeah,
I think there are some others that have.
The problem,
Go ahead.
Yeah, it was a big problem. Some of the best ones had to fight off tax increases. Some of the best ones were handicapped by what I would say was, a misguided leadership that ended up giving you 11 Democrats on a Revenue and Tax Committee, which then meant that there was going to be no people voting on the record from a conservative tax policy standpoint. Conservatives it was a faulty errand to go before that committee and try to get an actual tax cut passed, a real one, because the Democrats would have voted for it, or would have voted against it. So what you had was essentially the only tax policies that were going to ever even get voted on were the ones that the Republican leadership was going to have to make a deal with the Democrats to get it out of committee. And we had just a lot of defense, the good defense, when they were trying to raise their taxes. They succeeded some, but you're right, we do have good people down there, Trey, and I hope they continue to get recognized. But I don't understand why we continue to grow spending the way we're doing here, and we have this mentality where, okay, we want to cut taxes, but it's going to be a revenue neutral tax cut. We want to protect what the government's getting at all costs. And yeah, you said opportunity. That just certainly is what they're squandering there. And you feel free to comment more on that, but also comment on the Trump phenomenon and what that was like as a young conservative in the most historic election of my lifetime. It probably will be, the most historic election of your lifetime, because we're not that far apart in age. Yeah.
I'll go back real quick to just kind of what we were talking about with Little Rock. There's been so many missed opportunities, and I think what legislators forget is it is okay to go to the House and the Senate and not pass bills. If there's not a bill that's needed, if there's not a problem, if nothing needs to be fixed, then we don't have to fix it. And I know, in your own personal life, my own personal life, when we don't have money, what do? You cut your budget.
Yes.
And that means sometimes you have to sacrifice on things, and that's the problem is, government they're unable to push those pain points and to really kind of hurt a little bit, to make those cuts that hurt. So I hope to see us do that in Little Rock. But As far as Trump, Trump is a hard one for me. I lean probably more libertarian than most Republicans do, most conservatives do, again, because I'm very freedom, liberty minded. Trump was a hard one for me because I initially was a very big Rand Paul, Scott Walker, Ted Cruz guy.
Yeah,
I thought those
Rand
were
was
all
my
excellent choices.
Rand was my first choice, and then I was with Ted Cruz, until the end.
Yeah, same here. Also, I thought Rubio was a good option as well, but Trump did something that was unprecedented, and I think what he did was he resonated with people that felt like they didn't have a voice. I'll use the example. I was talking with a gentleman. I was doing some work for him this last week, and he's in his 70s, and he was telling me about his dad. He used to be a union boss up north, and he said, my dad was a lifelong, staunch, yellow dog Democrat, never was going to vote for Republican. But he said, then Ronald Reagan came along, and he was listening to him and hearing him espouse these conservative ideas and really getting out there and connecting with the common man, the unheard voice. And he said his dad in 1980 became a Republican and voted Republican all the way until he died. And we have so many great conservative voices, but they're getting lost in the void. And I don't think Trump is that. What happened was unprecedented. I think he connected with a lot of people that were unconnected with, but Trump doesn't know how to temper himself. And because he doesn't know how to temper what he says and his attitude, he's blowing a lot of opportunities. Republicans have a literal majority on everything. We control the House. We control the Senate. We, in many ways, control the Supreme Court. We control all these local houses. We have the presidency.
The maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing, and it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. We lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media
Here
Group.
we go, ladies and gentlemen. It's hour number 2. Thank you so much for being with us. Phone number, if you want to call or text, 870-275-9799. Broadcasting across Arkansas, as well as our Facebook Live, YouTube, and paulharrell.com. This is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We're building a liberty machine, and we're glad that you're with us. Joining us now to talk a little bit about some Arkansas state politics, we have Senator Scott Flippo from North Central Arkansas. Scott, welcome back, sir.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm happy to be with you all.
Yes, sir. I'm always glad to have you on and talk, big picture conservative ideas. But I do want to.
Big picture, small picture, state issues.
Yes, we can do it all. But I want to start by just getting your comments on the biggest news I feel like of the week. Which was we have Senator Jake Files mentioned in a sworn FBI affidavit that he took general improvement money and pocketed himself and forged bids on all this. I've called for him to resign. What are your thoughts on him continuing to stay in office?
Well, I think that needs to be a conversation that Senator Files has with the people that elected him. You know, one thing I will say, I've not visited with Senator Files since we adjourned the session. I don't want to say anything publicly, which I have not spoken to him personally about, but I will say anybody that's abused their position for their own personal gain needs to be held accountable. You know, one of my problems is that there's good people down in Little Rock that are down there for the right reasons, and, you know, if somebody does something unethical or illegal, it reflects upon us all, and it lessens our credibility when we go back and visit with our constituents and speak to them, especially as a conservative, about the need for sacrifice or less money or spending cuts. You know, that's a very difficult message to sell when they turn around and open the paper and see people pocketing, money for their own gain, especially if it's taxpayer money. Again, I only know what I read about in the paper, just like anybody else. I've not had any conversations with Senator Files about this. From what I read, he's in a difficult situation. And, at the end of the day, as an elected official, we have to uphold the public trust. And when that is diminished, it reflects upon us all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he even said in one of his statements that was defending this, he thinks he's going to be cleared, quote, of any appearance of wrongdoing. And, at this point, how can you ever be cleared of appearance of wrongdoing, even if you were ever miraculously found not guilty, for doing what you did? I mean, you know what I'm saying? So, let me ask you this, Scott. I think you guys should be held to a higher standard. Do you agree?
I agree. No, absolutely. Listen, if we're we're passing laws for other people to live by, and we're doing things, and we're spending the taxpayers' money, there is a level of trust that goes in with that. And so when you run for public office, I do think that you put yourself in a position where, you're in a position of power and influence. And if you abuse that or misuse that, there needs to be accountability there. Now, you've got, certainly the FBI is involved, and you've got the state's attorney that's going to have to look at this, and a grand jury. And I do believe in due process, but I also believe in justice. And, if people got the short end of the stick, if they were wronged, if the taxpayers were wronged, there absolutely needs to be accountability. And, there's on either side of the aisle, Republicans, Democrats, anybody. When you go down there, you're down there to serve the people. Now, that doesn't mean that people are going to agree with you, but these should be honest disagreements and not be about serving yourself. And so that's something that I try to hold a standard that I work to hold myself to. I know a lot of my colleagues do the same. Senator Files, I know what I've read about in the papers. I've not visited with him personally. But he's got some conversations that he needs to be having with his constituents, the people that elected him. But obviously, we all make decisions that affect, the entirety of our state. And so I understand that. And I understand that people are upset because this is not the first time that, the possibility of a corrupt legislator has come up. And, there might be, and there's a possibility that there'll be more things moving forward. So people are tired of hearing about it. Probably nobody more so than I am, because I'm actually want to talk about change and about, doing what we can to right the ship, to bring about conservative change, a conservative government, transparency. And these are things that are important to me, to the people that I represent, and I think to the people of this state. And so when things pop up like this that, kind of deviate us from those topics, it's frustrating because this is not what I'm about, and this is not what I went to Little Rock for.
Mm-hmm. We're talking with Senator Scott Flippo from Senate District 17 in North Central Arkansas. I want to shift gears now because we have been talking about Jake Files for several days now. And I'm by no means, ladies and gentlemen, through, but I want to shine a light on something. I read this story by Michael Wickline, 8 companies bid to aid state study. I covered it briefly on Monday. And this is just tell us a little bit about this, because you're a chair of this subcommittee that's trying to review how contracts are procured, the whole procurement process. Tell us about that.
Correct. So, one of my colleagues, Senator Hickey, had sponsored legislation during the session this year, specifically dealing with our procurement process and some of the things that need to be addressed. And what we're doing is we're reaching out to consultants that have, a background in this type of work, and looking at other states and what they're doing. Because as a co-chair, I've become aware of things in our process that don't make a lick of sense to me. And part of my responsibility, and all of our responsibility, is to make sure that we're being good stewards of the taxpayers' money. And a big part of that is going to be all these hundreds of millions or billions of dollars of contracts that get awarded to various vendors to provide a multitude of services throughout the state. Now, I think lobbyists have a lot of influence, and more than what they need to have in this process. I expect them to go down there and to do their client's bidding. And I expect the client, the vendor, they're accountable to their shareholders, so their motivation is profit, and that's very obvious. My motivation needs to be the checkbook and the taxpayer, and making sure that they are getting the best bang for the buck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we need to do a review of this, and not just do a review, but we're going to sponsor legislation in 2019 to actually address our procurement system, because I do believe that it is broken, it is flawed, and we need changes.
Yeah.
I don't know that you ever get something 100% perfect, but by gosh, we got work to do.
So back during, the biggest issue that I can remember, with this procurement process, it happened, and you tell me if this is going to address some of these issues, back with the DHS software debacle when we were talking about hundreds of millions of dollars being spent to these companies to do work that never actually materialized, and there were no clawback procedures in some of these cases where the government had no recourse to go and get the money back on when these guys were basically like crooks. So is that one aspect of this?
Oh, that's a huge aspect of this, Paul, and it's amazing some of these contracts that are awarded and the lack of clawbacks or performance bonds or protection for the state and the taxpayers, and that a lot of times vendors can get a contract and be far, far away from living up to the performance expectations, yet still keep it. And what happens is we just let this contract just kind of runs out, and then you rebid it. Well, if you're a year and a half into a 3-year contract or a 5-year contract or whatever it is, and we find out that, listen, we're getting the short end of the stick here, something needs to be done. I wouldn't go off and pay a contractor to build a house and see that they have royally botched the foundation, but allow them to go ahead and continue to frame the house and put the roof on when I know that they've already messed up the foundation, but I've already contracted with them. Mm-hmm. Well, listen, I'm not in the business of trying to have people, get the one up on me, and I kind of get that attitude when I go to the legislature. I'm not trying to let people get the one up on the citizens of this state. And so when it comes to clawback measures and protections for the state, that's been lacking. Now, I know that we're working to address that, not just in 2019, but right now. But there's a lack of credibility with a lot of these agencies because the arc of history shows that there's been very little done when it comes to contracts not being met and performance being subpar, that they have not gone back and recouped money. And you can't defend that. And so mine's not just to sit here and rain on what's happened in the past, but, to mention it and bring it up to say, this is why we've got work to do today, tomorrow, and, for the long term, because these things are not going to fix themselves.
We're talking again with Senator Scott Flippo. Michael Wickline writes, quote, "The review of procurement laws comes in the aftermath of skirmishing by some lawmakers and Republican Governor Asa Hutchinson's administration over various contracts." I think the biggest contract, we covered this last hour briefly, that's recently made the news, and I wonder if you know anything about it. It's about this new DHS contract that I guess the Legislative Council, they're not a fan of it. Jonathan Dismang had the vote expunged, so they're going to meet again on Wednesday. And it's the difference between a 75. Is that true, Scott? Did I mess something up?
Well, first of all, yeah, no. So we met on Wednesday of this week in Legislative Council. We had to adjourn last Friday.
Okay.
We were kind of at a stalemate. So Senator Dismay did make a motion to expunge the vote, to re-vote on this, to vote to review this contract again. And and I believe that Senator Dismay was looking at it through an honest perception, and we had some disagreements over this. And the opposing side on this contract made some legitimate points, Paul, specifically that the current vendor that has this contract did not file a protest when they lost the new contract. So there's a procedure that you go by, and this happens with plenty of vendors where they feel that one of their competitors did something that wasn't right or didn't answer a question correctly, and they try to call them out on that. Now, the current vendor did not file that protest. And so their argument is that this is kind of after the fact. This is the process. It went through these channels, and, we need to respect the process. And if there's changes that need to be made, we can make those with legislation, in the next General Assembly. Well, how I approach this is technically you might be right, and there is a protocol and a process. But I don't think the majority of my constituents, they're as concerned about the process as they are about making sure they're getting the best benefit possible and that their tax dollars are used in the wisest way possible. And that was something that I wasn't convinced on this contract. And the company that got it had bid over $42 million more than the current vendor who's been providing these services for the past 20 years. And I'm not saying they've done everything perfect. I'm sure they haven't. but the state had not had any write-ups on them. There's no deficiencies or demerits or anything. Everything was satisfactory according to documentation in DHS. And so I started scratching my head and wondering, well, how in the world can a new vendor come out there and get this contract and bid $42 million more? And they also, the vendor that currently has it, they've never had any noted or documented performance issues, with the state. And is somebody at DHS, when things go wrong, are they not documenting are they not documenting when there's poor performance? Because they should be.
Good question.
I get it's a lot. It's extra work. It's going to make life harder, not easier. But that's what we're down there for, to make sure the people that we serve. And I don't care if you're an elected official or if you're a state employee, we serve the taxpayer.
Yeah.
So that's got to be our driving. That's got to be our driving motivation.
So tell me. So what is the status now? Then I guess I've misinterpreted this story. You guys met last Wednesday, and so you're going to meet again to try to.
No, let me walk you through this, Paul.
Okay.
We met last Wednesday. I put a hold on this contract because I had some concerns with it, and several of my colleagues had concerns with it, both Republicans and Democrats. So there's a bipartisan concern here. And we go into ALC. That was on. We met on Wednesday of last week, and then we went into ALC on Friday, Legislative Council, which is the committee that kind of runs the state when we're out of session. And so this contract, I had put a hold on it, and did not want to release that hold because I wanted to extend it out for another month so my colleagues and I could continue to vet it and get some questions answered and see if we couldn't get some corrections made. And for an example, the company that won the contract, they came back at the 11th hour on Thursday and offered up a $5 million performance bond at no cost to the taxpayer. Why in the world didn't we get that on the front end?
That's exactly right.
So that's no cost to the taxpayer, and there's $5 million of extra protection there. Might there be some other things that we might be able to tweak and adjust to make better?
Yeah.
So that was the premise for wanting to hold this up, and not saying that this might not have been the right company, but I'm not sure that they were. But either way, if this is the current process,
it's like you said,
needs to be looked at.
Yeah, it's like you said, $42 million difference. The proposed 3-year, $75.3 million contract with Deloitte Consulting has drawn criticism because it's more costly than the 3-year, $54.4 million proposal submitted by the current contract holder. I mean, you're exactly right, and it's funny. Scott, sounds like you've read The Art of the Deal or something. You're trying to squeeze these guys.
I have actually read The Art of the Deal. Probably when I was about 15 or 16 years old, I read it. A great book, by the way. But, this is not rocket science. I mean, the objective here is to make sure that whoever gets the contract, you can't just weigh price. You have to look at their ability to meet the standards. But what procurement and DHS had done, and specifically DHS, is they had scored these contracts, and 80% of it was technical, meaning performance, and 20% was weighted at cost. Well, over 7 years, this was a $100+ million contract.
Yeah.
And only 20%, consideration was given to the cost of it. Now, I get the argument, which is going to be, well, Scott Flippo could go form an LLC tomorrow and come back and bid it out at $250,000, and if all you consider is cost, then he would get it. And I would not be in any kind of position to meet the standards of this contract.
Yeah.
But I don't think that that's an argument that you can just rest solely on.
Let me ask you this. Because I'm reading it further down in this article. So you're saying right now the contract is on hold, right?
No, it's not. The governor's going to move forward with it. The legislature does not have the ability. They do not have the authority of approval. Their authority rests with review.
Okay, so you were.
The legislature does not require to approve a contract in order for a governor to move forward with it.
Okay, because that's what I'm reading. That ACE is going through anyway. So why? I guess why is it just a formality that you guys even attempt to stop it or hold it up? I mean, what's the deal with that?
Sometimes I feel like it could be a formality, but it's not. There's a legitimate purpose. It allows legislators a chance to ask questions, to vet things. And sometimes you're able to, plenty of times in the past where legislators have put hold on various contracts for various reasons. And most of the times those issues get resolved. And that's why I wanted an extra month to continue discussions on this to see if we couldn't resolve some of those issues. and they wanted that contract reviewed then. And, it's always been the governor's prerogative that once the legislature appropriates the money, he's the executive. He's in charge of the executive branch. So, while they include the legislature as far as the review process, the final decision rests with the governor. And that's part of our Constitution, and I understand that, and I respect that. But that doesn't mean that I have to go along with something that I don't feel is right.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Senator Scott Flippo, we appreciate it coming on the program. We're out of time. I appreciate you looking out for the taxpayers and trying to get the better deal. And, of course, they offered up a $5 million performance bond, so that certainly is a good thing. So we appreciate it.
There's a start. Thank you, Paul.
All righty. Thank you, Senator Scott Flippo. Everyone, got to go to break. Back in a moment.
If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas. Do you need to advertise your business product or service, but not sure what the best choice is? Folks, allow me to introduce you to Talk Radio. You're listening to it right now. Talk radio is one of the most unique mediums in all of advertising because it actually works. It gets the information you want to the people you want to get it to. And by the way, those people are educated, well-informed decision makers of their household, and most of them have disposable income. If this is a target audience for your business, then you have to consider advertising on my show, The Paul Harrell Program. We have options for most any budget and can provide you with exciting opportunities to grow your business. We can put your message across the state, or we can help you locally. Call 870-275-9755 if you have any questions. That's 870-275-9755, or visit my website, paulharrell.com, and click on Advertise.
Welcome to the Arkansas Obamacare Hotline. We would be more than happy to help you enroll in Arkansas Obamacare today. We just need a little information about you. Let's get started. If you're disabled, pregnant, or looking for medical care for your child, the program is currently full, and there's no doctors to see you. Please hang up now. If you're an able-bodied adult, please press 1. If you're currently employed, we're sorry, but you most likely do not qualify for the program. Please quit your job and call back later. If you don't work and instead play video games all day with your cats in your grandmother's basement, please press 1. If you've never lived in Arkansas, press 1. If you currently live in another state, press 1. If you recently purchased a home in New Jersey for $750,000, please press 1. If your current identity has previously been used by another person, was created before your actual date of birth, or doesn't really exist, please press 1. Congratulations! It sounds like you're the perfect candidate to receive Arkansas Obamacare. Please stay on the line, and a hardworking DHS employee will be with you as soon as possible. While you're waiting, feel free to relax as your ambitions to gainful employment fade away. PHP Parody. The Paul Harrell Program.
All right. Thanks, Senator Scott Flippo. Folks, that interview did go long, so we are kind of going to run into another break here in just a minute. But for our online audience, we've got Paul from the Past up for you and our local affiliates across the state. So stay tuned because we've got a Conduit for Action survey that we want to get to. And we're going to have Joe fill it out, and we'll see if he actually knows some of this stuff about Arkansas government. You can fill it out right now. Go to conduit4action.org. That's conduit4action.org. But let me say a couple more things. Okay. It's a $42 million increase from the old contract to the new contract we were just talking about with DHS. $42 million. Now, so that means this private company is going to get an extra $42 million. And my question is this: what percentage of that extra $42 million is going to wind up back in Asa Hutchinson's campaign account? Not just Asa's, but a bunch of other people's. I mean, that's an actual thing. I mean, why wouldn't the private contractor want to kick some back to Asa in a legal way? I mean, it's unavoidable. Say, okay, now I'm going to donate to your campaign with some of this money, or now I'm going to donate to the Republican Governors Association, and then the Republican Governors Association is going to give you all this money. I mean, these things, this is how it works. And you got Scott Flippo saying, no, we need to look out for the taxpayers here.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
And what are we getting done? We're focused on the Russia probe and transgender rights and, lack of tax cut. And somebody said a, inappropriate word on television. We're not focused on the real issues that matter, that affect everyday Americans, and that is tax cuts and health care.
Yeah.
And when
Of course, you got McCain. What about McCain? I mean, I kind of feel like on the healthcare thing, that was just the empire, if you will, just did not want to actually get rid of this government dependency that they've become accustomed to.
No, and that's the thing. Getting rid of it is going to hurt. That's all there is to it. It's going to hurt. There are people that are going to lose health care. It's going to be messy. But in the end, it's the right thing to do.
Yes.
Because when I voted for these Republicans, when I got behind and worked for people like Tom Cotton and French Hill and all these guys, these excellent legislators we sent up there, the one thing I told all of them personally was get rid of Obamacare. Get rid of health care. Same here in the state. Stop expanding health care. And and as somebody right now that's been interviewing with other jobs, I'm noticing a trend in it that there's not a lot of benefits that companies offering more, and they're all telling me it's because our healthcare costs are so high, and our tax burden is so high. So it's that trickle down economics that Reagan was so good at espousing, that they don't understand that because they won't tackle those two big tough issues, we're having that problem on the bottom end. And so I don't want to sit here and openly bash Trump. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of some of the things he said. I'm not a fan of the way he does politics. I do admit that what happened was incredible. It was unlike anything we've ever seen.
I'm thankful for it.
I do want him.
I'm thankful.
Yeah.
Compared to the alternative. I mean, good grief.
Oh, listen. There is nothing better than yet another Clinton, and few people know that, like our Kansas. That said, there is going to have to be some leadership up there. I'm excited about General Mattis. I'm excited about Kelly. While I'm not military, many of my friends are military. And I like the military mindset on a lot of things, of discipline, getting things done, and making tough choices, and leading with the smartest person in the room. And so I hope that by surrounding himself with some of those people, it'll really kind of whip things into shape. And I like seeing him partner with people like Tom Cotton, who are tough, strong, proven leaders.
Me too. That's all the time we have. Trey Rosenbaum, it's been a pleasure to meet you, sir. Young conservative for our Conservative Future segment. Thanks so much for coming on, and I'd love to do it again soon sometime.
Paul, I really enjoyed it, man. Have me on anytime. Love to discuss this stuff.
All righty. Thank you, sir, very much. Folks, we got to take a break. We'll be back in just a moment.
You're listening to the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. The Paul Harrell Program.
Welcome back. Excuse me about that. Paul Harrell here, the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. You just heard that. Phone number, call or text 870-275-9799. I know we got a lot of texts from today. I'm going to get to those in just a moment or when we come back from break. All right, so check this out. Over at Conduit for Action, they've been putting out these weekly surveys. All right, and I guess the first week, it was just like approval ratings for the governor, and he ended up having like a 95% disapproval rating. For those of you that listen to the program and those of you that read Conduit for Action, you subscribe to their email list. So we're going to go on over. Go ahead, throw it up there, Joe. We're going to go on over to conduitforaction.org, and we're going to take their survey. Knowledge is power. Do you know how a bill becomes a law in Arkansas is what it says. Most people know the Schoolhouse Rock video explaining how a bill becomes a law.
I'm only a bill.
I'm just a bill sitting here on Capitol Hill. All right, so most people know the Schoolhouse Rock video explaining how a bill becomes law at the federal level. Chances are you've never learned the process here at Arkansas, though. So there's the quiz. You just click on it right there. It says Take Quiz Here. So we click on that. Hey, Joe, good to see you, man. I didn't know you're up and going with it. That's good. All right.
Yeah, I'll put it up there.
Sometimes you have an allergy, I feel like, to putting your camera on. All right, so
sometimes.
Here we go. What does this say here? Let's see. The lawmaking process is initiated by your state senators and House members filing a bill. After it's filing the bill, it's then assigned to a Senate pro temp or House Speaker to one of the 10 standing or House committees according to topics such as education, health, or revenue and tax. The most common way a bill becomes law after filing is for it to then pass through the following 5 hurdles. A committee in the Arkansas Senate, the Arkansas full 35 members Senate, the comparable Arkansas House Committee, then the full 100 member or House, and then the governor for signing into law. Take the quiz below to test your knowledge and learn how many votes it takes to pass a bill along each step to becoming law. All right. So here we go, Joe. This is all you, man. Question number 1, how many state senators are on a Senate committee?
I'm going to go with 9.
Okay. Going to go with 9.
I'm going to go with 9. I think 12 is too much. I think 8 is just uneven, or it's even, so there's no deciding vote.
Okay, you're going with 9. All right. Number 2, how many yes votes does it take to pass a bill out of a Senate committee?
Well, 5, because they need a simple majority.
Okay. All right. Here we go. Next up, how many, let's see here. We have how many yes votes, number 3, does it take to pass a bill out of the full Senate?
Well, there's 35 members. Simple majority is 18, so I'm going to go with 18.
Okay, 18 there. All right. All right. How many state representatives are on a House committee?
This one is a little harder because I'm not sure, but I'm going to go with 25 because, again, it's an uneven number.
Okay.
And there's 100
senators,
or 100 representatives.
Okay.
So I was going with 25.
All right. How many yes votes does it take? Number 5, how many yes votes does it take to get a bill to pass out of a House committee then?
Well, once again, simple majority, so 13 would be my answer.
Okay, 13 would be your answer.
Because it's 1 over half.
How many yes votes does it take to pass a bill out of the full House? Your questions here, 50, 51, 66, or 67?
Going with 51.
51,
That
okay.
one I do know.
Okay. Number 7, have you subscribed to Conduit for Action's email list?
Yes, I have.
The answer is yes. And then what town do you live in? And go ahead and hit submit. Let's see your score.
Oh, 50.
Oh, wow.
So there's 8.
Yep.
Got that one right.
Yep.
That one right.
Okay. Yep.
20. Okay.
20. Yeah. So let's review them for our audio only audience. So he got the first one wrong. How many state senators are on a Senate committee?
8.
There are 8.
Not 9.
Not 9, but 8.
Seems a little weird to me, but okay.
Yeah. Well,
an even number. There's
8 of them, but that means you only have to have 5 votes to get it out. Still,
Yeah, but what if it's tied? Like if it's 4 and 4, what happens?
Then it doesn't move out.
Okay.
Unless now, here's the thing: their corrupt process of getting bills out of committee, when they don't even have a quorum, they can just call for a voice vote, and even though there may not even be 5 people in the room, you need 5 yes votes. Even though there might not even be 5 people in the room, the chair can just, with a voice vote, say, I heard 5 yeses, even there may not even be 5 people in the room. It's the most corrupt process down there. Okay, so scrolling down, number 2, How many yes votes does it take to pass a bill at committee? 5. So you did get that right, which is a pretty cool coincidence. Number 3, how many yes votes does it take to pass a bill out of the full Senate? You got that correct with 18.
Simple majority.
There are 35 members in the Senate, so that would be 18. Continuing down, how many state representatives are on a House committee? You got this one wrong. You said 25.
It's 20.
And it's 20.
Again, I still don't understand the point of having it an even number, make it odd, so that way it's...
Well, there are wiser people than us that would know the answer to that.
Or think that they are wiser.
So it's actually 20, and that would mean that number 5, you got number 5 wrong as well. How many yes votes does it take to pass a bill out of a House committee? The answer is 11.
Simple majority.
Yeah. Keep going. You got this one correct. How many yes votes does it take to pass a bill out of the full House? 51. There 51. Are 100 members. Now, this is not in all circumstances. There are some times where it takes 2/3 to get something out, or 75%, 3/4 sometimes as well. But for the most part, see, Joe, this is a good exercise. You are the board operator / producer for Arkansas's #1 conservative talk radio show. And you are listening to me every day, and yet you didn't know some of this stuff.
If I did, I forgot it. Just
right.
Because I get it.
Point is,
with every day of being on the show, I'm bombarded with so much information that sometimes things slip through the cracks.
Yes.
I'm not perfect.
Yes. So the point is that this could be beneficial. Test yourself. I mean, those of you watching the video, you already have the answer, but go take the survey over at conduitforaction.org. And see for yourself. Very educational. Or share it with your friends. Maybe they didn't see that. You've seen this video. That's fine. You know the answers now. Go share it with your friends. Or, take the survey and put your email address in and sign up for the Conduit for Action email list. And every time there's a new survey or article, their articles are great. You can get lost on that website. You're going to get notified. So that's the good thing. Now, moving on. CNN. I am about to play you the most honest audio you will ever hear from the Clinton News Network. And it has to do with Charlottesville. We have a panel made up of 3 men and 3 women, and one of those women is what the politically correct left would call a person of color. One of these women is black. You have a 6-person panel, 3 men and 3 women, being asked specifically about Donald Trump's response after the Charlottesville tragedy. Allison Camerata, formerly of Fox News, is the anchor here. How fake can you get, really? I want you to listen to this. We have a visual for this as well, Joe. The most honest segment you'll ever hear from CNN. Listen.
Show of hands. Were troubled by the president's response to the violence in Charlottesville?
None of them raised their hand.
None of you minded how President Trump responded?
No. I didn't see anything wrong with it. I mean, he addressed the problem. I mean, let's face the reality. There are problems on both sides.
Do you think that neo-Nazis and white supremacists are the same as those who are protesting them?
I think it's ridiculous to have me choose between Hitler and Stalin, which is what I consider both groups are.
And why are the people who turned out to protest Nazis,
Not
why
all of
are
them.
they Stalin to you?
The Antifa group to me is totally a very Stalinish kind of group.
How so?
If you're willing to set fires and burn places to the ground, that doesn't sound like a very peaceful group to me.
But they're
both the same evil.
They didn't use those tactics in Charlottesville.
So then I blame the government.
Why do you blame the governor or the government for a white supremacist mowing down a crowd of people and killing someone?
Because they didn't protect the people that day.
The people who were marching with the signs, do you see them as neo-Nazis and white supremacists?
I mean, it hasn't been investigated, so we really don't know who was out there. But I'm telling you, I've seen videos of other people who were out there who were not neo-Nazis.
You believe that there were very fine people protesting?
Yes, I do.
How do you know that?
I'm only telling you from videos that I've seen that people...
But what's the source of your videos? Where are you seeing them?
Facebook. And when I tried to repost those videos, they wouldn't allow me.
Stop. Now, listen to this. This is crazy. Now, there are a couple of observations here. Let's start with the most recent. There were decent people there. We've interviewed one of them. Billy Sessions was one. He came on the program a couple of days ago. He's not a neo-Nazi. He's not a white supremacist. He was at Charlottesville. They never associated themselves with the white supremacists and KKK and the neo-Nazis. They stayed outside of Lee Park, and yet they still had members of their group that were just there to support free speech and there to say, hey, look, we don't think this monument should be taken down. They had people that were banged up because you had them forced right together, and you had Antifa with bats and clubs and everything else. There were decent people there. Donald Trump is the president of the United States. You're telling me he can't go on Facebook and watch some of these videos that show that there were people out there that are not racists, and I mean that's the truth of the matter. So that's the first observation. The second observation is, oh my goodness, can we get somebody to I mean, do you realize how irrelevant CNN is right now? I mean, nobody on that panel raised their hand and said that they thought Trump's comments were not right. I mean, CNN, seriously, the corporate media prides themselves and is very useful to the status quo, protecting the status quo, and influencing how people think and what they think because they are so biased. But, I mean, this is why they want to go after the internet, by the way. This is why they want to shut the internet down. You hear what she said? Well, I saw videos on Facebook that you guys aren't even talking about. I mean, you just don't make up a video. I saw videos on Facebook of people who were peaceful and they just didn't agree with the statue coming down, but they weren't racists. And what does Allison Camerata do? What a fake made-up name that is. What does Allison Camerata do? She says, well, what are your sources? Back up the video just a hair. And she's, I read it on Facebook. I couldn't share the videos. What do you think those sources are wrong? Listen to this.
From videos that I've seen that people.
But what's the source of your videos? Where are you seeing them?
Facebook. And when I tried to repost those videos, they wouldn't allow me.
Is it possible they're not credible?
Could be. But like I said, they need to
Facebook wouldn't allow you. Keep going.
Investigate and find out exactly what was going on out there.
Vice did an investigation of the people who went there with a purpose.
Isn't that incredible, though? I mean, she immediately has to just try to discredit her because just like Donald Trump discredited CNN and the media the other night in Phoenix, I mean, right there, this is a panel gone terribly wrong. I mean, that's the post. That's the CNN or the YouTube post. CNN Charlottesville panel goes terribly wrong because you're not reporting the facts, and there are people, the average people that are here saying, yeah. I wish they'd asked this question. How many people here get their news from CNN? Wonder how many would have. I wonder what the answer would have been. Keep going. They're going to play some. They're going to play a documentary where the racist. It was a documentary about the racist in Lee Park. Listen.
March for neo-Nazis. So let me just play a clip.
Tiki torch people. These are the tiki torch people.
Jews will not replace us.
Okay.
Jews will not replace us.
So blood and soil was a Nazi slogan, and you heard them saying Jews will not replace us. Is it possible that very fine people were in that crowd?
Not in that crew. Nope. But those crazy, I don't know what else to call them. I probably can't say it on TV, but they still had the right to say those crazy things.
That's the night before the clash happened. The Antifa people, the protesters, they didn't show up Friday night. They showed up Saturday. These protesters showed up the second day. They came there to do battle with them. They showed up with helmets, body armor, clubs. They showed up with balloons filled with urine.
And these guys showed up with semi-automatic weapons.
And the state of Virginia, open carry is legal. You can walk down the street.
It seems to me that you're giving these guys a green light. The white supremacists.
Not at all.
Stop.
Why
man.
do you seem more angry?
Back up a little bit. I want to hear what she says there. What a microcosm of how the mainstream media sees average groups of Americans.
The state of Virginia, open carry is legal.
What a microcosm, right? I mean, isn't that incredible? But it seems like you guys are giving them a pass. It seems like you guys are giving them are equating this and giving them a pass. And this is why Donald Trump won. Because you guys cannot quit. You cannot stop fantasizing about the Marxist chalkboards your professor would draw up for you, telling everybody how communism is actually a great idea in theory. Keep going.
You can walk down the street.
It seems to me that you're giving these guys a green light. The white supremacists.
The green light is not at all.
What a microcosm of what they think
at
of us.
Antifa than at the neo-Nazis in the
I'm not more angry. It's equal. The media is not covering it. They're only focused on making neo-Nazis and white supremacists out to be Trump supporters, and they're the issue of the problem. The reality is of what Trump said is there were two sides. There are two parties that participated.
He said there was trouble on both sides. Was there not trouble on both sides? Because I saw bats on both sides.
And I'm sure you've heard the argument. There was violence on both sides of World War II also.
Yes.
But we were on the right side.
Yes.
There's a right side and a wrong side.
No, not this
If there were some people in Antifa, okay, but most of them were students, including Heather Heyer, who was killed. So why aren't you...
She got killed because they didn't protect her.
Who killed her?
To be honest with you, I don't know because it hasn't been investigated yet. We haven't heard
but we
anything.
know who the suspect is.
Listen, I don't trust anything that the news media.
Oh my gosh! Stop. All right, so I have to make an amendment here. Okay, just real quick. These are actually a panel of Trump supporters. Okay, and my apology. I think earlier I said that they were random. I want to correct the record. These are a panel of Trump supporters. But that being said, still the truest segment that you'll ever hear on CNN. Joe, go.
What happened to, she said, but we do have a suspect. Well, what happened to innocent until proven guilty? What happened to that?
Okay, ARGOP.
I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I think essentially they're doubting everything at this point.
Well, and
I mean, clearly they have the guy in all probability that. I mean, yes, they've got the guy that ran over the guy, but that's how skeptical people are right now as to anything that comes out of CNN.
And when she said that, you probably heard the analogy that there were two sides that fought World War II, a good side and a bad side. Well, guess what? That doesn't hold up here.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it doesn't, because
well,
you have two sides both doing very wrong things.
Exactly.
Like, there are good people on both sides, but both sides were doing very wrong.
You fight what she's ignoring is when you fight a war, you do so because you believe you have the moral high ground. And in this instance, and that's what the media can't stand, is Antifa wants to destroy America. Okay, and so does the white supremacists. I mean, these are both people that don't represent a majority of opinion. No, a majority of Americans disagree with Antifa. A majority of Americans disagree with white supremacists. Most of us, the vast majority of us, want to treat people equally, want to judge people based on the content of their character, and honestly are way more concerned and worried about how we're going to put food on the table and loving our families, taking care of our families, and enjoying the freedoms that we got left. You know, football season's coming up, folks. And as much as I can't stand, in many cases, the distraction that it is, you know what I'm saying? I mean, this is America. This is America, and people want to live their lives, and they're not racist or Antifa. The majority of us are not. So I think that's the main thing that we take away from this. Let me see here. What time is it? Oh, wow. It's 5:52. All right, we got to take a break. The phone number, call us, text us. I'll have some text messages when we come back. 870-275-9799. Back in just a moment.
The Paul Harrell Program.
In a world full of constituents with social media accounts, bloggers just looking to increase their page views, and a talk radio host who generally is just the worst, how are Little Rock's elite supposed to conduct business with such a lack of privacy? Introducing the 1835 Club, older and more refined than other clubs that claim discretion. The 1835 Club is for seasoned political veterans that want to conduct the highest form of aristocratic business with the public's money. Are you a schemer? Do you someday want a guaranteed flow of taxpayer money to support your business? Is it your dream to see the .gov domain at the end of your business website? Don't listen to the imitators. The 1835 Club is the place where corrupt politicians and businessmen hatch their next crony schemes. At the 1835 Club, we make lobbying safe and legal.
Ethics.
Why, of course. All business is done in an ethical manner. Just look for the sign above the door that reads, loophole. Are you tired of the Capitol Police restricting your access to the roof after a perfectly good night of drinking? The 1835 Club has libations and a perfectly good roof. Other crony clubs that promise discretion try to lure you in by advertising bars made out of aeroplanes. Well, at the 1835 Club, instead of an airplane fuselage, we've got a space shuttle. No, not a bar. We've got an actual space shuttle that makes a daily run to the moon so members of the 1835 Club can have some real privacy away from the bloggers and taxpayers. Are you an Arkansas aristocrat? Do you want to be? It's the 1835 Club, and we work tirelessly to make sure the good old boy system remains alive and well. Join today.
Disclaimer. The 1835 Club reserves the right to deny membership to anyone who has principles. Any talk of the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution must be done in jest or, at the very least, with a condescending tone. And finally, the 1835 Club will be given a 25% commission of any agreements made between politicians and the business community.
PHP Parody. If you would like information about advertising or supporting the Paul Harrell Program and Conduit Media Group, call 870-275-9755. Join the fight against big government and advance the preservation of liberty by calling 870-275-9755. The Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
All right, welcome back. We are back here for the last little part of the program. I want to get to your text messages. A few things. First off, this is a good text message. Paul, do you have time to do a PSA, public service announcement, about the hurricane that's bearing down on southern Texas? Some folks may have friends or family down there. That's exactly right. There is a Hurricane Harvey, I believe, and it is bearing down. A lot of reports, some say 30 inches of rain. It could be very, very terrible. So if you've got family members down there, first of all, call and check on them. See how they're doing, and tell them to take this thing seriously. So that's the first thing. Next text message, who do we have? This is GB. GB writes all the way, well, I mean, this is where I am. Sorry. GB writes from Craighead County, which is the county that I live in. Paul, yes, Jake Files has got to go. Please resign quickly. Since he was playing personal Monopoly with the taxpayers' money, he needs to go directly to jail. Do not pass go. Speaking as a previous conservative state employee, after an elected official leaves office, yes, a cooling-off period is much needed. Many government employees would argue the fact that they're the only ones qualified for these jobs because they know how the government works. Simply put, if you've got it, spend it. For example, in Jake Files' case, he put it in his pocket. Why? Because it will not be reappropriated the following year. Sad state of affairs with ASA. Unless we have a conservative alternative, I will not be voting for ASA any longer. I feel betrayed. There you go. Well, right now, you certainly have a conservative alternative in Mark West, the Libertarian candidate that's running. There's no question he's the conservative alternative. No question at all. Let me say one more thing about Jake Files to the Arkansas GOP. And if you want to call the Arkansas GOP, leave them a voice message. They have now issued a statement defending Jake Files. And the Arkansas GOP needs to hear from you. You need to ask the Arkansas GOP for Jake Files' resignation. 501-372-7301. Call the Arkansas GOP. Tell them to ask for Jake Files' resignation. 501-372-7301. The last point I want to make about Senator Jake Files is this. For any legislators or anybody out there that's like, well, I'm not sure if I should be calling for his resignation publicly. I don't know what, we should wait and see. Okay, here's what I have to say. If this were a business, a lot of you guys have businesses, and you have an employee in this same situation, there is no way any of you would want them to stay on the job until innocent until proven guilty. That you wouldn't say. I mean, you would. He's caught. Jake Files has been caught. He may cut a deal. He may cut a plea deal. He may be ratting out all of them. I don't know. But there's no reason he should stay in office. And the fact that he may be ratting all of them out and they're protecting him from resigning, all to prevent a special election and everything else, maybe there's more to it. Maybe they're not protecting him solely to stop a special election. Maybe it's worse. Who knows? Maybe, we're going to have more on this. It's going to continue to develop. Call the Arkansas Republican Party and ask them to ask for Jake Files' resignation. 501-372-7301. Arkansas, I'm out. I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks so much for being with us for Johnny Cash Friday tomorrow. Don't forget, Arkansas, be safe.